My husband's phone buzzed on the third day of his coma. I grabbed it, thinking it was his mother calling for an update. Instead, a text message lit up the screen. "Darling, I miss you so much. Don't worry, I'll be home soon." But when I turned to look at the hospital bed, Mike was still lying there, completely motionless. The phone slipped from my fingers and clattered onto the linoleum floor. For 3 days, I hadn't left Mike's side except to use the bathroom or grab coffee from the vending machine down the hall. The doctors kept saying the same thing: severe head trauma, waiting for swelling to reduce, uncertain prognosis. I picked up the phone with trembling hands. The message was from someone saved as no profile picture, just the single letter. I scrolled up to see previous messages, my stomach nodding with each swipe. "Can't wait to see you tomorrow, miss, falling asleep in your arms. Our secret is still safe." Dozens of messages dating back 6 months. I'd never checked Mike's phone before. In our 8 years of marriage, I'd never felt the need. He'd always been an open book, or so I thought. A nurse walked in to check Mike's vitals, her eyes flicking briefly to my tear-stained face before focusing on her patient. "Any changes?" I asked, the same question I'd been asking every hour for 3 days. "His vitals are stable," she said, the same answer I'd been getting. As she adjusted his ER, another text came through. "Why aren't you responding? Are you angry with me?" I stared at Mike's pale face, the breathing tube protruding from his mouth, the bandages wrapped around his head. The car had flipped 3 times before hitting the guardrail. A single vehicle accident, the police report said. No witnesses, no explanation for why he'd suddenly veered off an empty highway on a clear night. My finger hovered over the reply button. Should I respond? Pretend to be Mike? Confront this mysterious E? My husband was fighting for his life while someone was texting him love messages, completely unaware of what had happened. I set the phone down on the bedside table and took Mike's limp hand in mine. The gold wedding band on his finger caught the harsh fluorescent light. I twisted it absently, a nervous habit I'd developed whenever I was anxious about our relationship. The band spun freely, too loose on his finger. Had he lost weight recently? How had I not noticed? As I stared at his hand, I realized there were small details about my husband I'd been missing for months: the late nights at work, the weekend client meetings, the sudden password on his laptop. Each oddity seemed insignificant on its own, but together they formed a picture I didn't want to see. The phone buzzed again. This time it wasn't a text, but a call from E. My heart hammered in my chest as I watched Mike's phone vibrate across the table. 4 rings, then silence as it went to voicemail. 30 seconds later, a notification appeared. Nouveau was pale. With shaking fingers, I pressed play and held the phone to my ear. A woman's voice, soft and tinged with a slight accent I couldn't place, filled my ear. "Mike, please call me back. I am scared. I think someone was following me yesterday. I can't do this alone anymore. I need you." The message ended, and I sat frozen, staring at my comatose husband, while 1,000 questions exploded in my mind. Who was she? What kind of trouble was she in? And most importantly, who exactly had I been married to all these years? As if responding to my thoughts, the monitors attached to Mike suddenly beeped rapidly. His fingers twitched in my hand, and his eyelids fluttered. "Mike," I whispered, leaning closer. His lips moved slightly around the breathing tube, and for a moment I thought he was trying to speak. Then his hand squeezed mine weakly but deliberately, and his phone buzzed once more with another message. "I found the documents. They know what we did 8 years ago. I fell in love with Mike Donovan in the dusty stacks of the university library. I was researching for my master's thesis, and he was returning a stack of engineering textbooks. He helped me reach a volume on the top shelf, and within minutes we were discussing quantum physics despite him being a civil engineer. His intelligence was matched only by his kindness, at least. That's what I'd always believed. Our wedding was small but perfect. My parents, his mother, and a handful of close friends gathered at a lakeside venue where Mike and I promised to have no secrets between us. The irony of that vow wasn't lost on me as I now sat in his hospital room, contemplating the stranger I might have married. Mrs. Donovan, a doctor, stood in the doorway, clipboard in hand. "Your husband's increased brain activity is promising, but we need to run some more tests. Would you mind stepping out for a bit?" I nodded numbly and gathered my things, including Mike's phone. In the hospital cafeteria, I stared at the device like it was a bomb about to detonate. The passcode had never been a secret between us. My birthday, 0427. I typed it in, but the phone remained locked. He'd changed it, frustrated. I tried other combinations: our anniversary, his birthday, his mother's birthday. Nothing worked. Mike had deliberately locked me out. I sipped my cold coffee and tried to piece together the timeline. The mysterious text had started roughly 6 months ago, right around the time Mike began working late at the engineering firm. 3 months ago, he'd started taking weekend trips, client meetings in neighboring cities. He'd claimed I never questioned it. His firm was expanding and he was up for partner. Looking back, though, I couldn't believe how blind I'd been. Mike had become distant, distracted. Our conversations had grown shorter, our intimate moments fewer. I'd attributed it to work stress, but now I wondered if E was the real reason. I decided to call Jason, Mike's colleague and closest friend at the firm. "Sarah, how's Mike doing? Any change?" Jason answered, concern evident in his voice. "Some increased brain activity, but he's still unconscious," I replied. "Jason, I need to ask you something. Has Mike been working on any special projects lately? Something that might require a lot of overtime?" There was a pause on the line. "Not that I know of. The Thompson Bridge project wrapped up months ago, and things had been relatively quiet since then." My stomach dropped. "What about the weekend client meetings, the ones out of town?" Another pause, longer this time. "Sarah, Mike hasn't had any weekend client meetings that I'm aware of. In fact, he's been declining site visits, saying he needed weekends free for personal reasons." I thanked Jason and ended the call, my mind reeling. Mike had been lying to me for months back in his room. The doctors had finished their tests and looked cautiously optimistic. "Here is definitely increased brain activity," one explained. "He's fighting to come back." I nodded, but a terrible thought had taken root in my mind. Did I even want him to wake up? What would I say to him if he did? How do you ask your husband if he's been leading a double life? As I settled back into the chair beside his bed, a nurse handed me a plastic bag. "These are your husband's personal effects from the accident. The police just dropped them off." Inside, I found Mike's wallet, his watch, and a small notebook I'd never seen before. The leather cover was worn, and as I flipped through the pages, my blood ran cold. It contained a series of dates, locations, and cryptic notations, none of which made any sense to me. On the last used page, dated the day of the accident, a single line was written in Mike's neat handwriting. "Tell Sarah everything. No more lies." The next morning, I left Mike's bedside for the first time since the accident. The notebook burned in my purse like a live coal, its mysteries demanding to be solved. The doctors assured me they would call if there was any change, and I needed answers more than I needed to watch him breathe through machines. Our apartment felt alien when I walked in, like I was trespassing in someone else's home. I hadn't been back since the night of the accident, when police officers had knocked on my door with solemn faces. Everyone Everything was exactly as we'd left it. Mike's coffee mug still on the counter, my novel face down on the couch, waiting for a reader who had more important things to worry about now. I headed straight for Mike's home office, a space I'd always respected as his, not out of suspicion, but out of courtesy. We each had our private corners in our shared life. Now I wondered if that respect had been my biggest mistake. The desk was meticulously organized, a trait I'd always loved about Mike, but when I pulled open the drawers, they were surprisingly empty. No files, no papers, just office supplies and a few tech gadgets. His laptop was missing, probably still at his office. I pulled out bank statements from the past year and spread them across the floor, looking for patterns. There they were, cash withdrawals every 2 weeks, always for $500, always from different A-teams around the city. None of these had been for our household expenses, those came from our joint account, which I managed. Then I found the credit card statements, charges for hotels I'd never heard of, restaurants in neighborhoods we never visited, and a storage facility across town, each month the same pattern. Each month I'd been oblivious, my phone rang, startling me. "Mike's mother, any news, dear Margaret?" asked her voice thin with worry. "Some brain activity, but he's still unconscious," I replied, the response becoming automatic. "Margaret, did Mike ever mention someone with the initial E to you, a colleague maybe?" "Maybe E," she repeated. "No, not that I recall." "Why do you ask?" "Just trying to get in touch with all his colleagues," I lied. "The firm wants to send flowers." After we hung up, I gathered the financial documents and added them to my growing pile of evidence. Next stop, the storage facility. The place was a maze of identical metal doors, security cameras monitoring every corner. I approached the office and smiled at the bored-looking attendant. "Hi, I need to access my husband's unit. He's in the hospital, and I need some important documents." "Name and unit number," the young man asked. "Mike Donovan," I said, then hesitated. "I am not sure of the unit number. He handles all that." The attendant typed on his computer. "I don't have any units registered under that name, ma'am." My heart sank. Could it be under Sarah Donovan? That's me. More typing. Nothing under either name. Sorry. As I turned to leave, a thought struck me. What about just the initial E or a full name starting with E? The attendant gave me a strange look but checked. "We have an Elena Koslov with a unit, but I can't give you access without authorization." Elena, the mysterious E, had a full name now. Back in my car, I googled Elena Koslov and found dozens of results, none seeming relevant until I spotted a professional profile for an Elena Koslov who worked as a paralegal at Carson & Hunt, a law firm that specialized in corporate litigation. Their office was downtown, not far from Mike's firm. My phone buzzed with a hospital notification. Mike's condition was unchanged. As I put my phone down, it immediately rang again. "Under number Sarah Donovan," a male voice asked when I answered. "Yes, who's this Ryan Westfield? I'm a friend of Mike's. Can we meet? There are some things you should know, Ryan." The name was vaguely familiar. Mike had mentioned him a few times, though I'd never met him. "How do I know you really know my husband?" I asked cautiously. "Your wedding was at Lake Geneva Lodge. You wore your grandmother's pearl earrings, and Mike surprised you with a song he wrote himself. He's allergic to strawberries, but ate your strawberry birthday cake anyway last year and ended up in urgent care." My grip tightened on the phone. These were details only someone close to Mike would know. Where and when? I asked. "Riverside Park near the fountain, 1 hour." The call ended and I sat frozen in my car, surrounded by evidence of my husband's deception. Was I heading into a trap or finally toward the truth? Either way, I was going to meet Ryan. Because if Mike was hiding something big enough to lie about for months, it might also be big enough to get him nearly killed. Ryan Westfield was not what I expected beyond on the gruff voice on the phone. I'd imagined someone older, harder looking. Instead, the man waiting by the fountain was young, maybe early 30s, with anxious eyes that darted around the park as if expecting trouble. "Sarah," he asked as I approached. When I nodded, he gestured to a secluded bench. "I've been debating whether to contact you since I heard about Mike's accident." "How is he?" "Stable, but unconscious," I replied, studying him. "How do you know my husband?" "He's mentioned you, but never in detail." Ryan ran a hand through his hair. "We worked together, but not at the engineering firm. That's Mike's cover job." The words hit me like a physical blow. "Cover job? What are you talking about? Mike isn't just an engineer. For the past 2 years, he's been working with a specialized private intelligence firm. We investigate corporate corruption, sometimes government connections. It's all legal," he added quickly, but necessarily secretive. I laughed, a harsh sound that startled a nearby pigeon. "You expect me to believe my husband is some kind of corporate spy?" "Not a spy," Ryan corrected, "more like a specialized investigator. We gather evidence, build cases that eventually go to the proper authorities. Mike's engineering background gives him access to projects and sites most investigators couldn't get near." I thought about the notebook, the mysterious cash withdrawals, and Elena Koslov. "Who is she?" Ryan's face paled. "You know about Elena. I know she exists and that she's been texting my husband intimate messages. Is she his handler?" "Wan?" "It's complicated," Ryan said, glancing over his shoulder. "Elena is connected to our current case, the biggest we've ever worked on. Look, I shouldn't be telling you any of this. I just wanted you to know that Mike isn't who you think he is, but he's not a bad person. Quite the opposite. If he's such a good person, why lie to his wife for years?" Ryan turned to face me directly. "To protect you, the people we're investigating. They don't play nice. They've already made threats. The less you knew, the safer you were. At least that was Mike's reasoning." I absorbed this information, trying to reconcile it with the man I thought I knew. "Was the car accident really an accident?" Ryan's expression answered before his words did. "We're not sure. The timing is suspicious. Mike had just obtained critical evidence. He was supposed to meet with me that night to hand it over." "Evidence of what?" "Systematic fraud involving several major infrastructure projects around the country, bridges, tunnels, highways, all built with substandard materials but approved anyway after inspectors were bribed. Mike discovered the pattern because of his engineering expertise. If these structures fail, people could die." I finished, feeling sick. Ryan nodded grimly. "And Elena's role in all this?" Before Ryan could answer, his phone buzzed. He checked it, his expression turning urgent. "I have to go. Be careful, Sarah. Don't trust anyone. You don't absolutely have to, and whatever you do, don't go back to your apartment tonight." "What? Why? Because they might know you are looking into things. Stay somewhere unexpected." "A friend they wouldn't connect to you. A hotel paid for with cash. I'll contact you tomorrow." He hurried away, leaving me with more questions than answers and a growing sense of dread. I decided to head back to the hospital. If what Ryan said was true, Mike might be in danger even in his comatose state. As I approached Mike's room, I noticed a woman standing outside his door, tall, elegantly dressed, with dark hair pulled back and a sleek umpius. She was speaking with one of the nurses, her back to me. When the nurse pointed in my direction, the woman turned. For a brief moment, our eyes met, hers widening in recognition, though I'd never seen her before. Then she quickly walked away, disappearing around a corner before I could react. "Who was that?" I asked the nurse. "She said she was a colleague of your husband's," the nurse replied. "When I told her only family was allowed workload, she asked, when you usually visited? I pushed past the nurse into Mike's room, half expecting to find him gone, but he was there unchanged, the machines dipping steadily. I collapsed into the chair beside his bed, my mind spinning. Who are you really, Mike? I whispered, taking his hand. And what have you gotten us into? His fingers remained limp in mine, offering no answers. But when I looked down at his hospital gown, I noticed something that hadn't been there before, a small scrap of paper peeking out from beneath his pillow. With trembling fingers, I pulled it out and unfolded it. In neat handwriting I didn't recognize were written 4 words. Finn his laptop. That night, against Ryan's advice, I returned to our apartment with a new determination. If Mike had hidden a laptop somewhere, I needed to find it. I searched methodically, checking bookshelves, feeling under drawers, even examining air vents. In our bedroom, I finally noticed something odd about Mike's nightstand. It was an inch farther from the wall than usual. Behind it, I discovered a small lever that, when pulled, revealed a hidden compartment built into the wall. Inside was a laptop, a passport I'd never seen before, and an envelope stuffed with cash. The passport had Mike's photo, but a different name, Michael Keller. The birth date was correct, but the birthplace listed Boston instead of Chicago. I stared at it, a cold realization washing over me. I didn't know my husband at all. The laptop required a password. I tried all the usual combinations, then remembered the note from the hospital, 4 words. Then his laptop. Bien on a hunch, I typed hurry into the password field. Access denied. I tried variations. Yaram now, please hurry, burn up. Nothing worked. Then I had another thought. 4 words. What if the password was 4 words? I typed. Finn his laptop, hurry. The screen unlocked, revealing dozens of folders with cryptic names. I clicked on one labeled Project Bridge and found hundreds of documents, engineering specs, financial records, emails, and photographs of men in suits exchanging envelopes. Another folder labeled Elena contained something even more shocking, photographs of a young woman with a striking resemblance to Mike Saranjalan, same distinctive eyes. Alongside these were birth certificates. Adoption records, and DNA test results. Elena wasn't Mike's lover, according to these documents. She was his half-sister, a child their father had with another woman before abandoning them both. I found a journal file where Mike had documented his discovery of Elena's existence 3 years ago, his decision to find her, and his shock when that search led him to uncover their father's involvement in a massive corruption scheme. William Donovan, the man who had abandoned Mike as a child and who I'd been told was dead, was very much alive and at the center of the fraud Ryan had described. As I read further, the pieces fell into place. Elena had been working at the law firm that represented several of the construction companies involved in the scheme. She discovered irregularities in the paperwork and started investigating, not knowing her biological father was involved. When she and Mike finally connected and shared information, they realized the scale of what they'd uncovered. The intimate text messages suddenly made sense in a different context. They were coded communications meant to look like an affair if ever discovered. Our secret is still safe, referred to their investigation, not a relationship. My relief was short-lived as I realized the danger they'd both been in. Mike's accident was almost certainly an attempt on his life, which meant Elena might also be targeted. And now possibly so would I. A noise at the front door jolted me from these thoughts. Someone was trying to get in. I quickly shut the laptop, grabbed it and the passport, and slipped into the bedroom closet just as the door opened through the slats. I watched 2 men enter our apartment. They were dressed casually but moved with purpose, immediately beginning to search the rooms. They weren't speaking, but their methodical movements suggested they'd done this kind of thing before when they approached the nightstand and discovered the hidden compartment. One of them swore softly, "It's empty. Chauvin got here first. She must have found it. Should we wait for her? Number Kaladin. We'll track her down." They left as quietly as they'd come, leaving me trembling in the closet. Once I was sure they were gone, I grabbed the envelope of cash and fled the apartment, not bothering to pack anything else. I drove aimlessly for an hour, paranoid that I was being followed, before finally checking into a roadside motel under a false name, paying cash as Ryan had advised. In the safety of the locked room, I returned to the laptop, searching for information on Elena's whereabouts. I needed to warn her, to let her know Mike had been attacked, and that they might come for her next. I found an encrypted messaging app, and after figuring out how to use it, sent a message to a contact listed simply as E. "This is Sarah, Mike's wife. He's been in an accident. I know about your father. You might be in danger. Where can we meet?" The response came almost immediately. "Riverside, Semara, tomorrow, 10 a.m. I fell into an uneasy sleep with the laptop clutched to my chest, wondering how I'd gone from being a normal woman with a seemingly perfect marriage to someone on the run, harboring stolen documents, and meeting mysterious contacts in cemeteries. Just before dawn, my phone rang. The hospital. Mike had shown signs of waking up. I arrived at the hospital just after dawn, exhausted but alert, the laptop hidden in a tote bag. The night nurse looked up in surprise. "Mrs. Donovan, I thought you'd be here earlier after we called." My heart skipped. "What do you mean?" "I came as soon as I got the call." She frowned. "That's strange. A woman came in about an hour ago, said she was Mike's sister and that you'd sent her ahead while you parked the car. She's with him now, Elena." It had to be. I rushed to Mike's room and found him still unconscious, but without any other visitor. The monitors showed steady improvement. His brain activity had increased significantly. "Where did she go?" I asked the nurse, who had followed me to the cafeteria, I think. Said she needed coffee. I hurried downstairs, but found no sign of Elena in the cafeteria. Back in Mike's room, I noticed something different. His wedding ring was missing. A text message appeared on my phone from an unknown number. -E. The chapel was empty except for a slender woman with dark hair sitting in the back pew. As I approached, she turned, and I was struck by how much her eyes resembled Mike's. "You must be Sarah," she said, her voice matching the accent I'd heard in the voicemail. "I am Elena. You took Mike's ring," I said, not bothering with pleasantries. She nodded, pulling it from her pocket. "A precaution. I needed to be sure you were really his wife." She handed it back to me. "They're watching the hospital. I came to warn you. It's not safe for either of you here who's watching our father's associates. They think Mike has evidence that could destroy them, and he does." She looked pointedly at my tote bag. "You found the laptop?" I nodded. "And I know who you really are. Why all the secrecy? Why not just tell me the truth?" Elena's expression softened. "Mike wanted to, many times. But the more you knew, the more danger you'd be in. He was trying to protect you by lying to me for years about who he really was." The hurt in my voice was unmistakable. "He's still the man you married," Elena insisted. "Just with parts of his life he kept separate to keep you safe." Before I could respond, my phone buzzed with a notification from the hospital security system, a feature they'd set up so family members could monitor who entered a patient's room. 2 men in maintenance uniforms had just entered Mike's room. "They found him," I gasped, showing Elena the screen. We raced back to the floor only to find Mike's room empty. No husband, no mysterious men, not even the medical equipment. A different nurse was at the station. "Where's Where is Mike Donovan? I demanded. The nurse checked her computer. It says here he was transferred to another facility 20 minutes ago. The paperwork was all in order. Transferred. On whose authority? His next of kin, his father, William Donovan, signed the forms. Elena paled beside me. He doesn't have the right. Sarah is his next of kin. The nurse looked confused. The doctor verified it himself. Dr. Morris? Dr. Morris isn't Mike's doctor, I said, my voice rising. Dr. Patel is absent. Dr. Patel called in sick this morning. Dr. Morris was covering. Elena grabbed my arm. We need to go. Now they'd taken him. As we hurried toward the exit, I spotted the two maintenance men by the elevator speaking into their radios. When they saw us, they started in our direction. This way, Elena said, pulling me toward the emergency stairwell. We raced down 6 flights of stairs and exited through a service door that led to the loading dock. Elena's car was parked nearby, a nondescript sedan with tinted windows. Get in, she ordered, starting the engine before I'd even closed my door. As we sped away from the hospital, I finally asked the question that had been burning in my mind. Where would they take him? To our father. Elena replied grimly. William will want to know exactly what evidence Mike has and who else knows about it, but Mike's still unconscious. He can't tell them anything. Elena's hands tightened on the steering wheel. They have ways of waking people up, even when it's medically inadvisable, and if they can't get what they want from him. She didn't finish the sentence. She didn't need to. Can you track them? Elena nodded. Mike and I set up contingencies. We both have tracking devices sewn into our clothes. I activated his remotely when I was in his room. She handed me her phone, which displayed a map with a blinking dot moving steadily northward. They're heading out of the city, I observed, toward our father's estate in the mountains. It's isolated, secure, the perfect place to interrogate someone without interruption. I thought about the man I'd married, the life we'd built all this time. I thought Mike was just an engineer, that we had a normal life in many ways. You did, Elena said softly. The Mike you know, his kindness, his intelligence, his love for you, that's all real. The only thing that wasn't real was his past. What do you mean Mike Donovan isn't his birth name? It's Michael Keller, like the passport you found? Our father forced his mother to change their identities when he abandoned them, to make sure they could never find him or claim anything from him. Mike only discovered his real identity when he started investigating our father 3 years ago. The revelation shook me. The man I married had lived under a false identity, not by choice, but by circumstance. His entire life had been built on a foundation of someone else's lies, and you, I asked. How did you get involved? I grew up knowing who my father was, but he wanted nothing to do with me. My mother used his guilt to extract enough money for us to live comfortably, but he never acknowledged me publicly. I became a paralegal to understand the legal system, hoping to eventually force him to recognize me as his daughter. She paused, her eyes fixed on the road ahead. Instead, I discovered his crimes, the bribes, the fraud, the cover-ups. Then, when people started questioning the safety of his projects, they had accidents, fatal ones. The dot on the phone continued moving north. We followed at a distance, careful not to attract attention. What's the plan once we find them? I asked. We have evidence on the laptop that could put William away for life. We use it as leverage to get Mike back. And if that doesn't work, Elena's expression hardened. Then we use the contingency plan, which is she reached beneath her seat and pulled out a gun, placing it on the console between us. Sometimes, bad men only understand one language, she said quietly, but let's hope it doesn't come to that. The mountain roads narrowed as we climbed higher, following the tracking signal to a secluded estate hidden behind tall iron gates. Elena parked a half-mile away, concealing the car behind a stand of pines. How do we get in? I asked, eyeing the security cameras mounted on the fence post. Here's a service entrance around the back, Elena explained. Deliveries come through there, security is lighter. We hiked through the woods, circling the property until we reached a smaller gate with only one guard. Elena pulled out her phone and tapped on an app. Seconds later, the alarm system on the main house began blaring, drawing the guard's attention. He radioed in, then jogged toward the disturbance, leaving his post unattended. Oldest trick in the book, Elena murmured as we slipped through the gate. Inside the grounds, we moved quickly toward a large stone building separated from the main house. According to the tracker, Mike was inside. That's our father's private medical facility, Elena whispered. He's paranoid about hospitals, thinks they're full of germs and prying eyes. Through a window, we could see medical equipment and 2 guards standing outside a door. Mike had to be in that room. We need a distraction, I said, surveying our options. Elena nodded toward an oxygen tank near the building's rear entrance. Cover your ears. She took aim with her gun and fired. The resulting explosion wasn't large, but it was loud enough to draw the guards toward the sound. We rushed inside, locking the door behind us. Mike lay on a hospital bed, looking pale but peaceful. Beside him, a thin man in an expensive suit turned in surprise. I recognized him immediately from the photos on the laptop. William Donovan, Mike's father. Who the hell? He began. But Elena cut him off. Hello, father. It's been a while. William's face hardened. Elena, I should have known you'd be involved in this mess, and you must be Sarah, he said, turning to me with calculating eyes. My son's wife, the one he supposedly kept in the dark. I know everything now, I replied, stepping closer to Mike's bed, and we have all the evidence, the fraudulent inspections, the bribes, the accidents that weren't accidents. William laughed, a cold sound devoid of humor. Evidence? What evidence? A few documents that could be fabricated. The word of a disgraced paralegal and an engineer with a head injury who would believe you? The FBI would, Elena said calmly. Parts since Mike wasn't working alone. Ryan Westfield isn't just Mike's friend. He's an undercover federal agent. They've been building this case for years. For the first time, William looked uncertain. You are bluffing, am I? Elena pulled out her phone. One call, and this place will be swarming with federal agents. The only reason they haven't moved yet is because we needed to get Mike to safety first. A groan from the bed interrupted the standoff. Mike's eyes fluttered open, confusion giving way to recognition as he saw me. Sarah, he whispered, his voice hoarse. What are you doing here? Saving you, apparently, I replied, taking his hand. How much do you remember? He winced, trying to sit up. The accident. Someone ran me off the road. I was going to meet Ryan.